Welcome to the LIMB-itless Podcast. The LIMB-itless Podcast is centered around exactly that, being limitless. Hunting, fishing, fitness, nutrition, adventure, disabilities. What may be covered during the LIMB-itless Podcast will be, well, limitless. Stay tuned for this episode of the LIMB-itless Podcast. Good morning, LIMB-itless Outdoors listeners. We are on a new location today. I've chatted about this a little bit on social media. I purchased a side-by-side recently on the Eastern Shore, Salisbury, Maryland area, and we're recording from that store this morning. But before we get into this location, what they do here, why they do it here, and why I bought the machine that I did, let's talk about our sponsors really quick. So we have Phelps Game Calls, we have Vortex Optics, we have Hunting Day Coffee, which we're going to chat about here in just a second. We have Wilderness Athlete, we have the Love Sauce Hot Sauce, and we have On Point Adventure Foods. Now, I'm not going to dig into those listener codes in this episode. You can go to previous episodes and find out what those are, but there's some really, really good discounts, anywhere from 10 to a 25% discount for you as listeners. I tell you this every single episode. Those discount codes, when you use them, they do not benefit me or the show whatsoever. They are purely for you all. So please jump on those listener codes with those 6 different companies. They're here for a reason. I believe in them, so please use those codes. So with that business over with, speaking of coffee, we're started out. It's 7:30 in the morning here, so we came in this morning. We kind of set up our little bit of display, and being a huge Hunting Day Coffee fan that I am, and I'm sitting here with Mike and Charles, who are coffee fans themselves. I brought in a bag of the Spear Hunter by Hunting Day. And Mike, what are your thoughts on that brew?
It's delicious. I love it.
It's good, right? So when we were prepping for this, I asked Mike, I was like, what kind of a coffee brew do you like? Do you want a medium roast? Do you like a flavored roast? Do you like a dark roast? He said, I'm a dark roast guy, so that's why I went
It's dark
Spear
and
Hunter.
delicious. No, I like this here compared to what I have every morning. I definitely could get on this train.
Right on. Let's so here's the bag here. So Hunting Day, they're based out of Virginia, the western portion of the state. They are a family home, family owned, hunting family, faith-based, and their roasts are expanding. And when I say the roasts are expanding, I'm not just talking about the flavors that they're putting out. They are now in Scheels. If you're a Scheels outdoor store fan, whether you live near one or you purchase online, you can now get Hunting Day coffee at Scheels, or you can get it directly from their website. And again, if you listen to previous episodes of the LIMB-itless Podcast, you're going to hear a discount code for 10% off any order at Hunting Day Coffee. I'll sneak this one in there. It's LIMB-itless 10. So, all right, let's talk about why we're here. I recently bought a side-by-side, and it has a 10-hour break-in period, and it's driving me nuts because I don't do anything with my machine except work on our little 25 acres. I only have 4 hours on it, and I've had it now for probably
a couple of weeks or month and a half now?
6 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I'm still in the break-in period. That break-in period means that it's in low gear.
Yep.
I have to vary my speed. I can't over torque it. I have to keep the RPMs low, and not that I'm racing that machine around anywhere, but we had a.
I think I saw on your Facebook you were doing some towing with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Putting stuff in the bed of it, whatnot. But my wife and I, we live right, like maybe a mile at most from the Marion Township Volunteer Fire Department and the Lions Club, which my wife and I are a part of. The Marion Lions. We were doing a fundraiser roasting chickens, and they have a big roasting pit there at the Marion Fire Department. And so it was a Saturday morning, and the guys were getting together to roast these chickens. So I thought, I'm just going to hop in the side-by-side and run it down the road. Even though it's only like a mile, I'm in low gear going 8 miles per hour. And in low gear, that 600cc motor is, and I feel like, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Monty Python, but it's the scene where they're storming the castle, and it just, they're storming the castle, and they're storming the castle, and they're storming the castle, and the castle's never getting closer. That's what I felt like going down the road, because I'm still in that break-in period. I just couldn't let her rip.
Oh yeah. You can sneak in high every now and then. Sneak in high every now and then when you're heading to that fire department. You'll be fine. I'm trying to be really
Precise,
conscientious
about breaking her in. But anyhow, Mike's on my left, Charles is on my right. That's going to be opposite for you as YouTube viewers if you watch this on YouTube. But who wants to kick this thing off talking about DELMARVA Power Sports?
Yeah, so hey guys, Charles, DELMARVA Power Sports, family owned and operated, been in business about 20 years now. And it's kind of a funny story, but I think I was about 11 years old. My old man was did construction, built homes all his life, heavy equipment like we talked about earlier. And one day I wanted a new dirt bike, and he told me to look in the yellow pages, look up their phone number, and give them a call, see if they had one. It was a Kawasaki KX65, and I called them, 11 years old, on the phone. Hey, you got a dirt bike? And they had it. So we went to the store the next day. And that was when my old man saw the place was for sale. So it was Sundance Cycles in Fruitland. They had Kawasaki and Suzuki. And long story short, my mom and dad ended up getting out of the construction industry. Not entirely, they kind of eased their way out of it, and they bought the dealership. We immediately brought in Yamaha from the get-go, and we moved the store in town, and we just been off to the races ever since. So.
Now, Charles, when you say in town, meaning this location, or was it someplace else before where we're at right now?
So we actually started at a smaller dealership in Salisbury, across the street from Pep Boys.
Okay.
We moved here in 2020.
Okay. This location is awesome.
So
We sold Speed City Motocross Park. We ran a racetrack for 8 years, 9 years, something like that.
7 or 8
and
years.
we sold that to build this place. And I remember ripping stumps out with this man every morning to build this place.
Oh, that was an adventure.
It was an adventure. It was an adventure. It always was an adventure, but definitely.
And it was wet. I mean, we were at the point where the rain just wouldn't stop when we were doing all the site work and we were trying to put in the fill dirt. And I remember literally I was in the excavator just digging out probably 4 or 5 feet of muck. And then my dad come right behind me and push in the fill dirt. And I mean, we have probably like very, very little fall from the highest points of the property to get to the drainage.
Yeah.
And it was wild. It was definitely.
So with your dad being in construction, did you guys build this building yourselves, or did you just do all of the land work for it?
So our dad was basically a general contractor.
Okay.
So he just hired a bunch of subcontractors, managed everybody, made sure everything was done to his liking.
Yep.
The building's fantastic.
Yep.
The lot's great. They have a test riding area right out here. I actually drove my machine before. I drove a couple.
Yeah, you drove a couple of them.
I test drove a couple
Yeah.
Before finally making that decision. But Mike, why don't you tell us about this family-owned business? That's what I really, really love about it. This is family-owned. It's not just one person. It's not owned by a chain.
Yep.
When you come into DELMARVA Power Sports, you're meeting the family that owns this business. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Even all the way down to our 93-year-old grandfather. He's there every day watering the plants. So it's awesome. We started, back in the day, me and Charles raced dirt bikes growing up, and big into it. Ended up building Speed City in Seaford, Speed City in Easton. And then as we grew, we had a hard time staffing the place. So we kept hiring friends, which was kind of was kind of risky, but it made it so personable. Now, from my best friend in the back, David, to Clark, to Grant, to all our good friends here, to Charles, my brother, who
We're all a big
at
family.
times, at times it's been tough, but when you come in, it makes it so personable because just everyone cares. Everyone's going to say hi to you, from my mom, Paula, to Holly that's grown up with us, to everybody here. It feels like family when you come in here. It's cool. It's a cool environment to come in.
It's not always pretty though.
It's not always pretty, but we try to keep that behind the scenes. So just like when you called in. When you called in, I was a busy time, and in the beginning, you talked to 2 or 3 people, and I was like, oh, let me put a stop to this, and I called you, and we went from a 4-wheeler to a side-by-side.
We did,
Yeah,
man. We
yeah.
can.
How'd that happen?
It happens a lot.
We
It happens
could.
a lot.
I don't know. How soon you want to jump into that story. What else do you want to talk about this power sport location?
So we are Yamaha, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Honda, Polaris, CFMoto USA, KO. So we are a 7-line dealership. And we used to be a lot smaller of a dealership. And now we have a full service center. We do all the farmers around here, fire departments, beach patrols,
Government.
a lot of government agencies. We're doing a deal with NATO on that machine in the back.
You said NATO.
Yep.
So-
they're picking up that blue machine. I don't think we can see it from here, but
NATO being the North Atlantic Treaty
yes,
Organization.
Yes. Yep.
So for listeners, if you're not familiar with NATO, I say this because when I was 18 years old, I had graduated Navy boot camp. That was in San Diego. I went to my trade school for the Navy, which the Navy calls that an A school. The Navy calls all their jobs a rate. And my A school was in San Diego. Finished radium in A school in December of 1991. And I think I was number 5th ranked in class for grades, which is rare because I'm called a strong diver, not a smart diver. But I did rank out number 5th in my class, and they put all of the orders on at that point in time, it was a chalkboard back in those days, and they had every set of orders for our class, and the person with the highest grade point average chose what orders that he wanted out of that listing. So when we hit number 5, I'm looking at the board, and there were 2 sets of orders to Hawaii. They were gone, and a couple of guys ahead of me, and one guy I specifically remember, he was from the Philly area, and there was some orders for Philadelphia, so he took those. I'm from Washington State, and there was a ship in dry dock up in Bremerton, Washington, and I'm looking at the orders, and there was NATO in Naples, Italy. And I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking Naples, Italy, right? And so I asked the cadre, I'm like, what is NATO? I'm 18 years old.
Yeah,
I grew up in a
yep.
really small town. There was 5,000 people in our town when I graduated high school, 87 kids in my graduating class. Not that they didn't provide a public state level education at that point in time. And maybe they had covered NATO in a class, and I just didn't pay attention.
It's a little different in the small town world.
Right?
We were raised in a small town world. It's a little different.
I was more worried about hunting, fishing,
Oh, yeah.
football,
Oh, yeah.
girls. I didn't listen to everything in the classroom. So anyhow, I asked the cadre, what's NATO? I am not kidding. Of all my radium instructors inside that classroom at that moment in time, they're like, we have no idea. Don't take those orders. They're like, you're from Washington State, Ritter. This is ships in dry dock. It's considered sea duty. You're never going to go to sea, but you're gonna be on a ship, and you're going to get sea pay, and it's going to go towards your sea counter, your sea time counter. They're like, this is a win-win for you. You're going to be a couple hours from home. I was like, I didn't join the Navy to be a couple hours from home.
Yeah.
I'm going to Naples, Italy. Well, when I find out that it's the North American Treaty Organization. For NATO, or North American Treaty Organization, history lesson here, it is the group of countries that form together to fight against the Axis powers and evil men around the world that want to try to conquer and endeavor through brutality.
Yep.
Let's just put it that way. So anyhow, to be here in Salisbury, Maryland,
Yes.
at this power sports store, and have NATO purchasing a machine from you
Uh-huh.
guys, nuts.
Yeah, yep. It
That's
it
cool.
shocks us every single time, but yeah, we do a lot of business with those guys. Not NATO in particular, but anywhere in the police agencies, any government agency, they'll contact us.
NASA's a
and-
big one too.
Yeah, NASA's a
Over on
big
Wallace.
one.
They bought a couple machines from us.
Yep, and it's neat because in the beginning we just dabbled into it. We didn't really know exactly where it was going to lead to, and now every time someone calls us, we're like, "What are we building today?" And sometimes we're building a fire rig or paramedic rig, and it's just cool. It's always a new adventure.
Sometimes you're dealing with a guy that has never owned a power sport machine.
Yes,
Thinks
yep.
that he knows everything about him for what he wants and needs, and you have to
Yes.
gently guide them through
Guide
the
'em in the right way.
process.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that was a roller coaster ride.
Yes, it is. But at the end of the day, and that's why we built this new facility. Our old dealership, I remember when I started, I was really young when our dad made us work in every different department just to learn it and to see different perspectives. And when I was on the sales floor, we had nothing in stock. So if I sold something, I had to go ask a dealership for it, and I would go get it for them. So I would be excited to sell one thing in a week, and now it's a little different. I think we did, 1,800 units last year? Mm-hmm.
Broke a record.
Yeah, broke a record. It was a little bit over 1,800 units.
Yeah, our
Wow.
most in the day was,
Yep.
what did we do, 28 or 29?
We hit it like 6 or 7 times. We did 28 in a day. And
Holy
we haven't
cow.
done 29, but we've done 28 in a day like 4 or 5 times. Yeah.
So you're chasing
On
that.
our short day.
You're chasing the dirty 30.
Yeah, we're excited for it. It's neat. Yeah, yes. 30 would we'd probably go into dinner on that night. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and talk about what brought me to DELMARVA Power Sports.
Yes.
It's not a secret for folks that listen to the show that my wife and I moved. We bought property and a house and whatnot on the Eastern Shore a year ago, and kind of a lifelong dream for me, owning property. And I'm not going to say that's the dream of every American, because it's not. Some Americans want to own a brownstone downtown DC, right?
Oh, yeah.
Some people want to live on Long Island and never ever own a vehicle. They just walk and take public transportation,
A lot
right?
of people want to live in RVs now.
Absolutely. But, dream for me was to own property that I could hunt on. My wife loves to garden, so she wants to have a really nice garden on it. And I leased a fair amount of property my last 3 years in the military. Lived on it, Southern Maryland, over in Charles County.
Okay.
And I could not, at that point in time, I was single, but there were some things that had happened in my life with where I was spending a lot of money supporting something, and all that extra cash was going elsewhere. So for me to work that property as a hunter, from a hunting aspect, I did it all on one leg. So if I wanted to take mineral out, and again, so this area that I leased 13 acres. And then I talked to a couple of the property owners around me. So I had over 100 acres that I had access to that I could use at my discretion. So on my back, I packed out full up ladder stands. I had 3 feeders running. I had multiple mineral sites out there, and I would load everything on my back, and I would walk it all over that 100 acres, scouted the whole place.
Yeah, that's a
went
lot.
Pinpoint thing. It was, man.
That's
it
a
was,
lot on 2 legs. That's a
it
lot
was-
on 4 legs.
it was a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I took a lot of pride in it, right? But life would have been a lot easier with a machine.
Yes.
And Tara and I bought this property down in Marion Station, and it was like, baby, I really want a machine. Well, Tara had been raised by her stepfather, who had 53 acres up in Pennsylvania, and he had a Honda 4-wheeler. And so Tara was leaning towards a 4-wheeler because that's what she knew. We had 25 acres, and in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't need anything more than a 4-wheeler. And I did a ton of research on the internet about guys that manage their properties with a 4-wheeler. And when I say manage their property, they put in food plots, they had water sources, they did gardening, they mowed with it. They did all these things with their 4-wheeler. And there are ample implements on the market to utilize a 4-wheeler for that purpose. What I found through that research was shaft drive machines was the right choice if you're going to try and perform year-round maintenance and improvement on land, because a belt drive, the belts will stretch, and you'll have issues with your drivetrain in a four-wheeler if you try to do all that stuff, especially if you're doing a lot of plowing. That's the information that I received on the internet. And I was bound and determined to have that four-wheeler. Our 25 acres is also mostly heavily timbered. So to navigate through it, I thought that smaller machine was my only option.
Yep.
So I did a lot of research on machines.
Yep.
Then I went to the NRA's, the National Rifle Association's Great American Outdoor Show up in Pennsylvania. And they had Polaris there, and I was leaning towards Polaris, even though they're a belt drive. Mm-hmm. And the guys at Polaris, they told me that the belt drive was not an issue. I was looking heavily at Suzuki, because Suzuki is a shaft drive. And the guys at that big Polaris display, have you guys been up to that Great American Outdoor Show?
So I've been to a couple of the different shows, yes. Just to note, the Suzuki's actually a belt-driven machine on their machines. Everyone is belt besides Honda. But yeah, I've been to those outdoor shows, and Polaris goes there, and they show so much support, and they're such a great brand to deal with. And I think when you called me, that's when you were on Polaris. You met someone with Polaris.
I had, yeah. And their display at the NRA show, it's not as big as your showroom, but it's one of the biggest displays up there. I mean, they have a footprint. And I chatted with their reps, and they were sending me to a very specific model that they make. Mike, you might remember what it was, the utility model.
It was the Utility 570 Sportsman. Yep.
And for that machine, it has a pretty good markup on it. And the other thing too was moving out here to the Eastern Shore. I mean, I can drive down to Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, and find a couple of different power sports stores. I can go over to the mainland and hit a couple of stores, maybe bigger stores, or I could call around. Tara and I, we want to be considered locals out here, and you're not going to become a local if you don't interact with your community and if you don't support the businesses that are out here on the Eastern Shore. So I was focused on trying to keep my money on the Eastern Shore, so I made some phone calls, and was talking to two different sales reps here, and then ended up with you. Yep. And then came down here face to face.
Yep.
And I had given Mike all the information that I had gleaned off of the internet. In my mind, thinking, I'm not talking to somebody on the telephone who's giving me their opinion for what they sell at their store. I have canvassed the internet, and I'm drawing in all this information. So now I have enough knowledge inside my head to be dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I was dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I was going down the wrong road. So I was so focused on a four-wheeler, I did not think that a side-by-side was the right choice for me.
Well, and I run into that a lot. And especially actually being a Honda dealer where they're shaft-driven machines, I got a lot of the farmers and hunters that didn't want a nicer machine. They didn't see the practicality of it. And just like you buying that land, you saw what you needed, but this market and this industry has grown, and now there's so much comfortabilities you can have in it. Mm-hmm. And then that's why a lot of the guys will come in for a Honda or something. They'll ride a side by side and see how much more they can enjoy it. They can enjoy the process more. So the Honda gets it done every time, and that's the cool thing about having all the brands here in one location. You can get nice and confused. And that's what happened.
A lot of options.
And then you felt that UForce 600 was perfect for you.
Yeah.
Skinny, power steering, winch, and
I came down to do the in-person with Mike, and he had asked me on the phone, "Are you sure you want a four-wheeler? You sure you don't want to look at a side-by-side?" And I was dead set against a side-by-side. I'm like, I don't need it. It's going to be challenging getting it through the trees. I've already looked at implements for my four-wheeler. I have a trailer for it. I can plow with it. And came down and looked at the different machines. We talked about Polaris, we talked about some of the other brands. Really started leaning towards Suzuki because the Suzuki is known to be a quality machine for land maintenance. The Honda did not have the CCs that I wanted. And the Honda's reputation is incredible. Probably won't break a Honda. But I just did not want to go in that direction. And I ended up starting out wanting a Suzuki, and then I started looking at the Polaris and thinking that I was going to go with the Polaris. So Mike was like, look, this is what I really loved about this whole experience. He's like, I'll sell you the utility if you want. I'm going to have to order it. I can't guarantee you when it's going to get here because they don't sell a ton of them. And it's about $2,000 more than my most popular machine that I have them in stock right now, and or I can have one here for you in a week. And he was like, before I lead you down this road, because I just don't feel comfortable charging you more money on a machine that doesn't provide you everything, in my opinion, that Polaris has to offer. At least that's what I recall from our conversation.
I remember that. I got a little nervous about it because I called you up and I said, man, I know he doesn't need to spend that $2,000. And then we came down, and that's when you saw the side-by-side right in that same price point, right where you wanted to be. And I think it worked out for the best.
It worked out really well, and we did. I jumped ship, and it was funny. He did so much legwork for me, researching machines, so I came down to actually order one. And I walked in the store, and on the way here, it was just really, really weighing on me. That's like, am I making the right decision? I can put Tara on the back of a four-wheeler, but in a side-by-side, she can be sitting right next to me. It's a lot more comfortable, right? And so I walked in, and Mike was all ready to sell me a Polaris four-wheeler. And I'm like, hey, I'm really thinking maybe I need to look at a side-by-side. And man, the smile on your face, you're like, man, I was really hoping you were going to come around. And, I was like, I want to stay in the same price point. And that's one of the things that I was really leery on, was how much money you can end up spending on a side-by-side. That's a rabbit hole.
Yes, it's a rabbit hole. Well, we deal with some of the farmers we deal with nowadays. 5,000 acre farms, they'll put 4,000 or 5,000 miles on their UTV in a year, and they drive it more than their truck. So some of them, they have heat, they have AC.
Some guys make them street legal now.
Yeah, they have street legal now. The Bluetooth now hooks to all your game cameras. So I mean, even if you're a bird watcher or just want a camera in the front driveway and you're in a chicken farm, it actually helps them tremendously. So it's grown so much that there's a lot of different product on the market, and it's cool to be able to come here and be able to drive things that are $12,000 and then drive things that are $20,000 and really justify what you want to spend.
And again, I'm going to stress finding that right store, that right location with the right people that are going to help you navigate your needs. And look out for your best interests. So even through the side-by-side process, Mike immediately shifted gears. He's like, I'm so thankful that you're doing this. This is really a good decision for you. A decision that I needed to find on my own, not have it forced on me by somebody else's opinion. We got there. Then we started looking at all the side-by-sides, and Mike kept me in that price point, and I ended up with the CFMoto UForce 600. And, I mean, I drove some Polaris machines. A buddy of mine has a $30,000 John Deere that I have spent time in. It's a great machine. We drove the Kawasaki Mule. We drove two different Rangers. We drove did we drive a
Pioneer, maybe?
Did you drive a Pioneer 700?
I think I did.
I think you did.
I think I did.
You did.
And
just to feel that shaft-driven machine. I think we did do that. Yep.
And Polaris makes a really nice ride, but you're going to pay for it.
Yeah, you're going to pay for it. Yep.
And to stay in that price point that I wanted to, I really started looking at the Honda just because of Honda's reputation. The CFMoto is you get a good machine with a lot of bells and whistles. Now, I don't spend a ton of time in my side-by-side, again, 25 acres, but there were some key things that I knew that when I come home to Tara, my wife, and say, hey, babe, I'm not getting a four-wheeler, because, again, she was attached to that four-wheeler because of her family's property and it had a four-wheeler on it. And if I would have showed up with that Kawasaki Mule or the Honda, which are great machines, but they're pretty bare bones.
Yep.
Not even a cup holder.
Yep.
And oddly enough, when I looked at the difference between the Polaris and the CFMoto and the Kawasaki and the Honda, the Polaris and the CFMoto, they had cup holders, and they aesthetically they just looked a little more modern,
Exactly.
a little more appealing. And where the Mule and the Honda, they're workhorses. You know, that's their bare bones workhorses. We're going to go get the job done. And I was like, if my wife's going to be in this thing, I need a cup holder. At least one for her, because we're big coffee drinkers.
Yes, yes.
And my wife is either carrying a Yeti with coffee in it, or she's carrying some type of a water bottle, because once her morning cup of coffee's gone, she drinks water all day long. So she needed to have that cup holder, and that's Mike looked at me and he's like, Aaron, you're in your 50s. You seem like you're a pretty focused, responsible guy. He said, if you were 18 years old and you were going to be out ripping the sand dunes, I don't know if I would push you towards a CFMoto. But being at your age, knowing that you're probably gonna use the machine for what you're telling me you're gonna use it for, you're worried about, concerned about, and focused on maintenance and how you care for your machine. He's like, this CFMoto is gonna last you your entire life, and so far I've been super happy with it.
Yeah, no, there's a shoe that fits everybody when it comes to a side-by-side or even a time frame in your life, where a Polaris might fit better, a Honda might fit better. When I was 16 years old and trying to be Evel Knievel, the Honda, hands down the Honda. But for the money, the CFMoto, for power steering, a winch, and the capability of it, there's a shoe that fits everyone in a time frame in their life. So it helps to be able to guide that person in that way. Because when you get reading about the 9 different brands and the 40 different models and different colors and different accessories and the whips and the horsepower, it gets confusing. I change my mind every day on what I want.
Even the day I drove down here to pick up the machine, and they had thrown a couple of extra parts on it for me. So they
for the front receiver hitch.
So there was not one on it. So one of the items that I wanted was a front receiver on my machine, because I had been so focused on a four-wheeler, and some of the implements on a four-wheeler are required up front hitching. Well, when we shifted over to the side-by-side, we also made the decision that, and this again after research, guys that plow with a four-wheeler, they typically stick to really small food plots, meaning like 1 or 2 acres tops. When you're trying to do, one of my food plots is going to be roughly 5 acres. I'll have a total of probably 8 acres of food plots on this property when I'm all said and done. And I had people telling me, dude, the number of passes that you're going to have to make with a four-wheeler with a plow behind it is insane. Like, you'll probably have to run the same property 3 different times trying to work that disc down into the soil. Especially out here, it's clay. It's all clay. And so we ended up, we purchased a Kubota tractor if you're going to do it, then do it right?
Yes.
And the longevity and the health of the machine is important as well, right? Yes. But anyhow, when I was shopping that four-wheeler, I thought that I knew I needed that front end receiver. And so when we transitioned over to the side-by-side, I kind of felt the same way. And we had looked at all of them, and the UForce 1000 has a front end receiver, and I thought that the 600 did as well. So we spec'd out this 600, we ordered it. They added a couple of other parts to it for me. I came down here to sign the dotted line and pick it up, and when I walked out to look at it, it's a beautiful machine. And I have the tan body parts on it. Oh man, it's so sharp looking. And the first thing and it has a winch on it. And the first thing that I noticed when I looked at the front end was there was no front end receiver. And I thought, well, maybe they didn't install it. So I came in and asked her, like, no, the 600 doesn't have it. And there was a 1000
Right next to it.
right next next to it, and it was the Desert Tan, had the front end receiver. And Mike came out of the store, he's like, hey, there's your ride, what do you think? And I was like, Mike, it's not going to work, it doesn't have the front end receiver. And
Finally found the one.
and it was just the disappointment on your face, you know.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was like, I want that 1000. And I mean, it wasn't. I sold like $1,000 more.
Yeah, yep. I remember that because I'm always excited to see the smile. And
Yeah.
the smile was half there, and I was like, oh.
And they had already
Back to the drawing board.
already labor into my machine.
Yep.
And Mike was like, you know what? My goal here is to make you happy. I'm going to eat the labor, whatever. I'll sell that machine. You'll go home with the 1,000 a day. Let me go print the paperwork out on it. And I'm standing there with one of his service guys.
It was Clark, I believe.
Was Clark.
Yes,
I was going to say Jack.
Yep.
Clark.
Yep.
And it was not a Christmas vacation conversation that we were having with Clark. And I could even see the disappointment in Clark's face because he had helped work on my machine.
Yes. Yep.
But, I mean, again, man, the people that are working here, Clark's like, Aaron, he's like, he's like, the machine's bigger and this and that. And I'm thinking, it is bigger. It'll be a little more comfortable for Tara and the dog and I, but how's that going to maneuver through the timber,
woods,
right? Because it's a bigger machine. And Clark says to me, he's like, Aaron, I have my own plasma cutter at home in my shop. I do metal work for a hobby and a side job. He said, I can fabricate you a receiver for the front end of your machine if that's what you think you need, if that's what you want. And he said, pay me for the materials. It'll be a fun project for me. It'll give me something to do. If that's what you want, he said, I'm already starting to look at it, figuring out how I can probably make this work. So I went in to Mike and I was like, hey man, I am severely overthinking this. I'm taking this 600. And that day, after it was delivered,
Yep.
I took it out on the property. And again, having to start working this property, that the hardwoods are so dense that I would not have been able to penetrate into the center of my property with that 1,000. I mean,
when did you purchase that property? Didn't you just purchase that before?
We've had it a year ago, June.
A year ago soon. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I've already scraped some of the tan off of the paneling on that
Putting it to work.
600
Yep.
because of where I've been squeezing it through trees, right?
Yes.
And you guys you're gonna laugh about this one. When the delivery guy, who was awesome by the way, dropped off the machine, he was covered in grease, and I had greasy fingerprints all over the front end of that tan machine. And so when he left, I went and got some cleaner and a rag, you know, and I cleaned it all off and whatnot, and took it for a ride that night. And the next day I went out and did some work, and when I came back, I didn't even look the machine over, but I was putting it through saplings and pin oaks and whatnot. And Tara comes out to bring me water, and we're talking, and she just starts laughing. She's like, I'm so glad that you meticulously wiped off all of those grease prints yesterday because you've already rubbed the paint off of the front end. I was like, what? And I go around, and up on the quarter panel, there's this big black streak where I had stripped the paint off of the quarter panel.
Yep. It'll happen. Hitting brushes happen. God, me fishing every single time. I cover the boat in blood, clean it all afternoon.
Yep.
It's just part of the nature of the beast.
So speaking of fishing, that was one of the other things that I enjoyed about coming down here to DELMARVA Power Sports is when you come in here, there might not be depth of hunting in this store, but you are a dedicated fisherman.
Yes.
And so you can connect with people here on so many different levels in regards to what the machine's capabilities are and how and where you can use them. So they have street bikes in here, they have cruisers in here,
Yes.
they have off-road bikes in here, cross-country motorcycles in here, they have kids stuff in here, they have retro machines in here, they have mopeds in here, they have all the different four-wheelers and side-by-sides for all these different applications, and you can connect with different folks in the sales department, the finance guy who's sitting here
You know,
next
the
to me.
accessory guy.
The accessory guy, the service.
Yeah, yup, it's cool.
Yeah.
When we, and a little background to it, we lived in a motorhome a lot of our life, racing dirt bikes. We grew up in the middle of nowhere. All our friends hunted, and then when we still loved it, I mean, a couple times a year, but we were always racing dirt bikes. We went from racing dirt bikes to riding four-wheelers with friends to all our friends were farmers at the time. So we just got to see the applications of what we call toys in so many different ways. At the racetrack, we raced dirt bikes. The paramedics all had side-by-sides. The kids were all on dirt bikes. When we got home, how I got to my friend's house, I rode my four-wheeler there. It's just being raised in a small town and then traveling most of our life in power sports. We've just seen it in so many different applications, and it's
always been around.
Yeah, we fell in love with it. Yeah, it's like a second language to us. It's cool, and we watch dirt bike racing every Saturday night. It's like our football channel, and it's cool because everyone gets to relate to it. Every single person in this building rides in some aspect.
Yeah, it don't matter.
Yeah, they have a hobby of it, and it's just all in different ways. He still races dirt bikes.
A little bit.
I ride four-wheelers, so this is how it is. It's cool.
It was great. So this was the fun part for me when I came down and met Mike face to face. Well, we started chatting about it a little bit on the telephone, but came down here and at that time I had my F-150 with my truck wrap with my Limitless wrap on it, and so we started talking about the outdoors and hunting and fishing. And Mike is an avid fisherman.
Yes.
And here's the cool part. You know, I don't have a lot of outdoor secrets. I firmly believe that knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
Sharing knowledge is powerful. And some people think I'm nuts for having a big truck wrap. And I go hunt public property all over the place. And they're like, when you go somewhere, Aaron, people see that. And if they know who you are, they know where you're hunting. If they don't know who you are, they see an advertised outdoor vehicle, so they know somebody that knows what they're doing is hunting there, so they're probably going to hunt there. That's okay. If I can be a part of somebody's success, that means something to me.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike is a avid fisherman. Grew up here on the shore, knows a ton of secret spots, and the first thing that he said to me when he found out that I was a fisherman and a kayak fisherman,
First thing is when I found out you were in towards Chrisfield.
that too, right?
Oh yeah.
It's like, hey man, I will, if I can't take you there myself,
Yep.
I'm going to tell you where to go so you can be successful and
Yes.
enjoy the fishing opportunities here on the Eastern Shore. It wasn't where some people hoard all of that information and they're worried about their secret spot. Now, I'm not saying that Mike's going to share me his most favorite secret spot,
yes,
right?
yes.
But he's going to send me in directions where I can go be successful and find my own secret spots.
It's kind of like power sports. It's what we enjoy to do, and I know a lot of fishermen like that when they started they wanted to be the ones fishing, but now you go on a lot of boats and the guys that are taking you, they just want to see you reeling the fish.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to see. And as soon as I found out you just moved back down here and you were huge into being outdoors, the fishing here to Chesapeake Bay, to the ocean, to the flounder fishing in Virginia is just, it's addicting. It's a cool thing. And in Chrisfield, I spend a lot of time red drum fishing at certain times of the year, and speckled trout fishing, and there's just a wide variety of fish down here in a local area.
So with any luck, this will not be the only podcast
Yep.
that I do with Mike or maybe Charles as well. Although Charles told me before we started recording that he's not really that much into fishing, but maybe
He's getting there.
I'm
He's
getting there.
maybe we get out on a boat together.
Oh yeah.
And
we
we
always try to go
catch some
offshore
fish.
together.
I
We just can't leave
I
at the
need to
same
get
time.
him offshore, and he'll be fully addicted to it. I try to do a good bit of tuna fishing.
Try?
Yeah. Well, I'm if I'm not in this store, I'm tuna fishing, and I've been trying to get Charles out there, and it's just so hard. Where he is my brother, and if I'm out of this dealership, he kind of has to be here, and vice versa. If I know he's off, then I got to be holding down the fort. So it's.
Well, I'm thinking we need to do a
But
podcast.
you, on the other hand, I might be able to sneak you out and do tuna fishing anytime. So
We need to do a podcast in the boat fishing.
yeah, Starlink's a thing now.
I think it'd be great.
Yeah. Yep. The cool thing is we could be, and years ago we wouldn't be able to do it, but now we can be 60 miles offshore, 70 miles offshore, and we could be live.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
you know, getting outside of Chrisfield on some of those mature red drum and
Oh,
just
yeah.
go live, do a
Yeah.
live podcast in the boat.
That'd be pretty
Man,
cool.
we would definitely have to watch the sailor language in that environment.
Yes. Especially when we're hooked up. When
Yeah.
we're hooked up, I get worked up. That's for sure. That's for sure.
The
That's for
Navy
sure.
will come out of me.
Yeah, yeah. And it's cool because outside of Chrisfield, you have all the islands: Bloodsworth, South Marsh, Tangier. Tangier Island, everyone's still living on. I told you to go down there and visit them.
Yep.
It's like a different world. So there's a lot of exploring on the Eastern Shore, and I meet people from all over. And that's where when you called, it was kind of second nature. I meet all these people. I love talking to them. I love seeing where they're from and the story they have to tell. It's
So
cool.
what? Just real quick, and then we'll probably end up wrapping this up because you
Yeah.
guys are gonna have to get the store open.
Mhm.
What are all the different species that people come out here to target on the Eastern Shore for fish?
So that's a tough one. So at Chrisfield, there's people that come there and they just do it to target speckled trout, red drum, black drum, sheephead. Cobia are moving through the area now. The flounder capital of the world is Chincoteague, Virginia, which is 40 minutes from your house. I'm to be doing the Mid-Atlantic Tuna Tournament this year, which is in a couple weeks. The big fish is going on. So, I mean, from white marlin to blue marlin to, one of my favorite species is tuna, to all of it. So being on the Delmarva, you have the Chesapeake Bay and you have the ocean. So it's kind of the best of all worlds.
Striper,
Bass everywhere. I've been eating them my whole life.
white perch, snakehead, largemouth bass.
Yep.
And when we talk about redfish, like red drum and black drum, there's also puppy drum here as well.
Yes, there's puppy drum
So
here
you
as well.
get into the slot fish certain times of the year.
Yep.
Yeah, it's and again, you can do it in a massive commercial size fishing boat.
You do it in a kayak.
You can do
little
all
skiff like I got.
all the way down to a kayak or a
Yep.
skiff.
He has one of the backcountry Florida key boats, so he can go up all the canals, flounder fishing and speckled trout fishing. So it is cool. I've been showing him actually. I was like, you'd be amazed the places on the Delmarva you can take a little boat and catch great fish and have a good time.
No, I remember we caught that. It was like a 48-inch rock. It was the first time I heard that.
Yeah,
line
that was
in a
on
long
my
time.
that was on my 12-foot John boat, and
Yeah.
that day actually we fished probably 3 hours. One was a 26-inch speckled trout, it's gorgeous, and this is 3 feet of water, and then the next one, I'm yelling at him to get in the boat because my speckled trout rod has a 48-inch rockfish on it. And I'm like, get in the boat, we gotta get this thing. So it's a cool environment on Delmarva, and I couldn't be more thankful for where we have this location and who I get to talk to every day.
Delmarva, that's Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. It's the Eastern Shore. If you're not familiar, get on Google Maps, check it out. And for all of your sportsmen out there, if your wife is not into the kind of like they don't want to go hunt or fish with you, but they like to go on some different locations with you and do their thing, Ocean City is 40 minutes outside
Not
of
even
Salisbury,
far.
depending on
25
the
minutes.
traffic lights, time of year. You might sit in traffic a little bit, but Ocean City's right down the road. It is like the beach capital of Maryland.
Yes,
Big beaches, big high rises, lots of restaurants, miniature golf, plenty of things to do for the wife and kids. So you can come down here, they can have a vacation, and you can go. Like if you're a Midwestern or Western guy that's used to catching trout, largemouth bass, salmon, steelhead, and you want to get some of the East Coast fishery, you could bring the family out here, do a vacation, and you could punch a huge card on fish that you've never seen, caught, or consumed before. Man, I'm telling you, even white perch tacos, holy
White
smokes.
perch is one of the most delicious fish in the world. If you got the patience to clean them things, they are the white meat. They are They're a good fish.
And you'll catch a slew of them.
You'll catch
I
a
mean,
slew of them.
take your kids out white
Yep.
perch fishing, they'll be hooked.
Yep. And
No pun intended.
Yep. And that's another cool thing about this industry and this career is I get to talk to people that exactly their wife and their kids are in Ocean City, and they Google DELMARVA Power Sports, and they take a trip here. And I get to talk to them and why they're down here, and half the time that's what it is. They're down here fishing or hunting, and their families are enjoying the beach. It's the best of both worlds.
Yep, it is.
It's a compromise. It's a good compromise.
It is. It's
Yep.
a great compromise. That's how and why Tara and I landed here. I'm a mountains guy. She's a beach girl. There's whitetail, turkey, sika.
Yep, there's cicadillas through my backyard every day. It's the coolest place I could ever wake up to.
So that's yeah, it's a great compromise. So, well, gentlemen, is there anything else that you want to talk about in regards to DELMARVA Power Sports?
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing us on here.
Absolutely. This was awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good. It was a small way of me giving back for the service you guys have provided me, and I am a lifelong customer.
Yep,
Now,
I
yeah,
appreciate
it's
it.
been great. Really good. All right, guys.
I
So
would like to say one thing, actually. Just, you know, as a family-oriented business, we really pride ourselves in the buying experience for the customer. You know, a lot of places, you'll go into the store, you'll tell them you want this, and then they just try to hurry up and sell you that. Whereas we try to really take the time to understand you as a person, what you're looking for, what you really want or need. Kind of like we spoke about earlier, when your son turned to a side-by-side.
yes, sir.
And we want to make sure you're happy when you leave here. And we really pride ourselves in that. We're not just trying to make a sale and kick you out the door.
Yep.
We want to keep you happy, keep the family riding, and obviously we want you to be safe. So I just want to touch on that a little
That
bit.
was probably the perfect way to end this episode. Do you guys want to throw out your website?
Oh, yeah. It's www.delmarvapowersports.net. Yep, it's DELMARVA Power Sports. And like I said, we feature Yamaha, Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Honda, Polaris, CFMoto, and KO USA. So we have several brands here. Some tons of stuff to look at.
Right on. All right, guys. Thanks for listening in. Stay tuned for some more great stuff that, again, Limitless podcast is not just about hunting, even though that's what I do with the majority of my time. We're covering all the realms here, so be limitless.